Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus show, live. And welcome to our 50th episode. We've stayed on track for 50 times, 50 weeks in a row. And I just want to welcome you back here. Oh, don't let them fool you. We got a mind of our own and we're going to move ahead. So folks, thank you for viewing us live or viewing us when you have an opportunity to view us on demand. Thank you so much as we are on YouTube, LinkedIn, we're on Facebook and Twitter. That's right. You can see us in a lot of different places. And we just thank you for that. Could you be loved? We love you. And welcome back. Welcome back, folks. Thank you. And today we're celebrating our 50th. I even brought my little thing here. Well, 50 doesn't really suck, but you know what? I had this on my 50th birthday. Oh, and 50 is great. We are on it. 50 episodes, staying on track with voting rights, staying on track with the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus, staying on track, inviting guests in, talking about things that's going to move us forward to where we want to be. We've got some great things happening. But first, I want to start off, as we always start off, saying to you, hello, it's Woke Wednesdays. Nothing wrong with being woke. You don't want to be asleep at the wheel. Sleep at the wheel, you'll be wondering what happened instead of making it happen and staying on point. And that's the whole point of the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus. The reason why we're staying on message, because we want you to understand that this is important to you. It's important to your children. It's important to the country. It's important to the state of Virginia. It's important to the Democratic Party. It's important that we stay on point, and we're going to do that. So welcome back, you Democratic small business owners, you soon-to-be small business owners, people who are supporting small business owners all around the country. And folks, we just want to thank you for the support we've gotten, all the guests that we've had through the 50 episodes that have been on so far, as we've stayed on point, as we've talked to small business owners and politicians and activists and people from all different sorts of industry to bring their story to you so that you might have something interesting that you will see. It's not the regular. I know we say the same thing, but it is important. Oh, it is vitally important that we stay on point, and we need to stay on point. But first, as I start off every time, and I say we do not currently, or the days that our co-host is not here, which is Aaron Porcher, who is the interim chair for the Louisiana Democratic Party Small Business Caucus. And she may or may not pop in today, but we're always happy to see her when she does. And we're not going to have a guest today. I just want to sort of talk about, as I did last week, important things that are happening. But we've got some great guests coming up next week and the week after. So folks, you're just going to have to settle for little old me on this 50th episode. And listen, as I tell you at the beginning of every show, listen, this COVID thing is not over. You need to make sure that if you haven't gotten vaccinated, consider being vaccinated. And I think for all the reasons we don't have the big outbreaks that we have not had in the past is because a lot of folks have gotten vaccinated, and that's helping. And a lot of people have contracted this virus and have survived it, and that's helping to make us better as a whole comprehensively. So I just want to say to you, keep on doing what you're doing and stay with us. Wow, man, I was out back and looks like there was, I had a little friend that got on me, a little friendly summertime bug, but I got him. I was like, hey, what is that? Anyway, like I said, this is live, Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus show, live. You never know what you're going to get. So listen, folks, getting back to the COVID thing, make sure you make a decision one way or the other. Hopefully you've had your 2 shots and your booster, and you're wearing your mask at appropriate times. It's not a thing where we have to wear the mask all the time. Some folks do for various different pre-existing morbidities that they need to protect themselves from. And when you're in enclosed environments for a long time on planes and things of that nature, it does help to just kind of keep yourself safe. But it's all a personal choice. And part of what we're doing is making sure that you know about that. And folks, so stay safe, keep your family safe. We love you out there, and thank you for supporting the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus Show live. Thank you very much. And this is our 50th episode. That's 50. That's right. 50 times we've come on here and talked to you with various different guests, talking about the things that are important and staying on point to the things that we need to stay on point about. So it is fantastic that you're still there and that folks are still looking at the video podcasts out there on the various different platforms. Listen, what I also like to say to you is that we're standing strong here. There's been some interesting things that have happened in Virginia. We are in a primary season. There's peoples whose races that are happening here on a state level. There's races that are happening on a federal level. The complete House of Representatives, and also at least I think 30 senators are being reelected, along with other races that don't just include state senators and state delegates, and but also there's races that are happening around the country for judgeships and everything else, and also for executive offices as well. So, folks, stay engaged. Help out where you can. Get in where you fit in. And remember, you got to do something. Everybody can do something. I kind of love Joe Madison's saying, and he's right. Everybody can do something. They can do something. They can make a call. They can make calls from anywhere, supporting people in Virginia, supporting folks that we want to support outside of the state of Virginia. With calling, providing resources, donating to campaigns, getting people who you are family members and friends, or maybe you don't vote in that state. There's a race going on down in Georgia, and races in Texas, and races in various different places for gubernatorial races and other things. So, folks, you can also, make your presence known, not just here in Virginia. You can make your presence known completely around the country. And you know what? Just pick up the phone and do it. There's enough information I know I get inundated with from folks all over the country looking for all types of support for Democratic races and Democratic activism that's happening around the country. It's important that we win these races. It's important that we maintain what we have on a federal level and expand it. So, it can't happen without you. So you got to do what you can. Whatever you can do to make that happen, jump in there and get it done. Get it done. Get it done. Yeah. So get excited. Get pumped up. Get encouraged. Be encouraged, because your participation is what makes it happen. So, I like to get in there and talk about that every week. We've got a lot of good things that we have gotten done. From a small business concern, there's been the interesting things that are happening here in Virginia, as I said, and we're just trying to get it done. I kind of fly without a script and just try to talk straight from the heart and straight from my mind. I want our show to be informative. I want it to be engaging, and we wanted to add information. And I try to stay on point, telling people, listen, there's a call to action. My call to action to you is, do what you can do. Use the various different tools that are out there. We've got some fantastic activism tools that are out there. And next week, we'll talk a little more about that, because once this primary season is over, we've got that November election coming up. So make sure you vote in the primary. Make sure that you're doing everything that you need to do to make sure that your voting registration is correct and in place. all around the country, not just in Virginia, but each state kind of has its own little twist to things that they do. We know there's been a lot of different voter suppression legislation that's happened across a number of states, over 443 or 440 some pieces of legislations where they have attempted to change what is regularly the case for voting. So don't just assume your voter registration is good during the primary season and before the general election. It's a good time to check your status no matter what state that you are in. So go ahead and do that. All right, make sure that you can vote and make sure that your vote counts. And I'm here just basically to talk about that a little bit and to let you know what you need to be doing. So I'm here giving it to you. It's just me again. And I'm going to talk about going into that. We had the American Rescue Plan that's helped out a lot of small businesses, $1.2 trillion from a federal level that was dispensed out to the states. You've also had the people helping people get back on their feet, checks that were sent out to Americans all over the country to help them re-engage from COVID as citizens, not just small business owners, through the American Rescue Plan. And then you also had the infrastructure plan. You've had a lot of bills out there that tried to get passed, and the reason why we need to stay engaged. You had the George Floyd bill for policing reform. You've had the voting rights bill that tried to get passed. And you've also had a number of other bills, but just naming some of the bigger ones out there. And then now we have the challenge with some other things that are coming up around a woman's right to choose. Folks, we have got to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time, meaning there's lots of things that you need to do. And we want to try to provide you with resources in order to make that happen. So you can contact us here at the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus. That's www.v as VA for Virginia, and then that's D for Democratic, then SBC for Small Business Caucus. That's VADSBC.com. We're happy to take your emails and to respond to you, or either phone calls, or either however you want to reach me, or either on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're on a number of different platforms out there providing information. We've got some great races that are happening here in Virginia. We want to continue to maintain our folks at a federal level to keep them in office. With folks like Don Beyer, who's in the 8th Congressional District here in Virginia, and Jerry Conley, who's in the 11th Congressional District. And there's a number of other candidates from, I'm just speaking about some folks who are currently in Northern Virginia, but there's candidates all over Virginia. Virginia's got 11 congressional districts, of which the majority are Democrats. I don't want to not leave anyone out, but so I'll just name the 2 that are in my area, but folks, you know who the rest of them are. Make sure you're getting out there and supporting them and supporting the folks who are running for office. So let me get to what I always talk about, is the importance of voting rights. And here we are on our 50th episode, 50, staying on message, talking about what we need to talk about, which is voting rights. Voting rights is extremely important. And I like to just try to tell a concise story to let you know how we got to where we are and what we need to do to move forward. Quick little history. Once again, I will talk about it as I do every week, staying on message. You really have the sort of trinity of things that we need to talk about around the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. It provides provisions in the Civil Rights Act to forbid discrimination on the basis of sex as well as race. And also in hiring, promoting, and firing. And as you can see, the various different graphics that are down here with President Johnson at that time, Democratic president, signing that legislation, getting it done. You see kids over here to the right who are riding the bus to get together as they integrated the schools. And of course, the the civil rights activism that happened with these police here and police dogs attacking a nonviolent protester. So, folks, it's important that you understand that a lot has been done, and a lot has been done through the 60s, the 70s, in the 80s, the 90s, and now here we are in the 20th century talking about the same thing again. But then next, in 1965, we had the Voting Rights Act of 1965. The act was signed into law August 6th, get ready to come up in 2 months by, again, President Lyndon Johnson. It outlawed discriminatory voting practices. That includes voter suppression laws that are out there now. We'll explain how those laws got back into our lives again by many Southern states after the Civil War. And also, it included things such as literacy tests and other prerequisites to voting. All those things are things that are part of voter suppression. So you see in these pictures, folks who were protesting about their voting rights now. You see President Lyndon Johnson shaking the hand of, getting ready to shake the hand, actually, of Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abernathy, and of course, John Lewis, the former Congressman John Lewis, which one of the new acts is named as they fought on Bloody Sunday crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge. There's been a lot of sacrifice to get the country to where it is now. A lot of the rights that came after that were all based upon these things that we fought and got done in the 60s. And finally, I want to talk about the Fair Housing Act of 1968. All of these things tie together because that expanded on previous acts which prohibited discrimination in the sale, the rental, the financing of housing based on race, religion, national origin, and as amended, handicapped and family status. Known as Title VIII of the Act, is also known, as I said before, the Fair Housing Act of 1968. These are the things that were the basis of a lot of other rights that came after that because of these rights that were hard fought for and secured by our parents and by our grandparents and our great-grandparents. I mean, you have every generation building upon another generation, building upon another generation to where we get to where we are today. And that's how we get there, to try to make what you often hear people say, a more perfect union. And creating a more perfect union is important because this is what the founding fathers talked about for themselves at that time, but we've actually expanded that to all Americans, no matter where you come from. And let me tell you, that there's a lot of hard work that had led up to that. And one of the things we want to talk about first is what we need to do. Let's talk about H.R. 4. That is the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. This bill establishes criteria for determining which states and political subdivisions must obtain pre-clearance in all caps before any changes to voting practices in any of the areas. In any areas, this is not allowed to take effect. Pre-clearance basically is a process of receiving pre-approval from the Department of Justice and the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia before making any legal changes that would affect your voting rights, such as the voting suppression laws that are going on now. Why is that happening? Because in 2013, the Supreme Court thought it was a good idea to take this pre-clearance piece out of the Voting Rights Act. And that's when all of the voter suppressing actions went right back into action as they were before in the days of Jim Crow and before these laws were put into place. And let me tell you, specifically, this bill proposes to modernize the Voting Rights Act formula for determining discrimination in states and localities. It declares any changes in any voting rules, at least 180 days must be done before an election. And also, it gives the government more authority to send federal observers to monitor jurisdictions for potential risks of discrimination at the polls during voting. So it's very important that we get the Voting Rights Act passed. That's the reason why I've talked about it for 50 consecutive episodes. Voting rights is the fundamental foundation of democracy. If you do not have voting rights, it is like air to your body. It is the fundamental piece which makes democracy work, because it allows you to elect representatives locally, on a state basis, and as well as on a federal basis, that represent the ideals that you would like to have implemented by people who represent you in Congress. So these things are important. And I'm saying it again, and I'll continue to say it. I've said it 50 episodes in a row. That's 50 weeks in a row. We have to have this put back into place, because this is what allows us to keep our democracy. So right now, that democracy is under attack. Let me tell you also now a little bit about another act that passed the House but did not pass the Senate, because when we talk about H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, passed the House. However, it did not pass the Senate. We had a couple of Democrats in the Senate that did not vote for it in order to make it pass. So we're trying to get more Democrats into office right now so that Voting Rights Act and other legislation can be passed. Hold on to what we currently have and add more to it, not just on a federal level, but also on a local level, on a state level as well. You have to vote in every election and make sure you're registered to vote. Let me tell you a little bit about H.R. 1. H.R. 1, For the People Act. The For the People Act basically expands the access to the ballot box to reduce the influence of big money in politics, strengthens ethics rules for public servants, implements anti-corruption measures for the purpose of fortifying our democracy and other purposes. As you folks well know, we experienced something to this prior administration that we had not experienced before. If something wasn't specifically codified in law, people's ethics used to stop them from doing these things. But now, if it's not a law, ethics be damned. They're going to do it anyway. Well, this bill, which passed the House and was sent to the Senate, is a massive effort to expand access to voting. It also has things in it like automatic and same-day voter registration nationwide, 2 weeks of early voting for all voters. It bans purging of the voting rolls. For example, some of the laws that are out there now, what they're basically doing, saying, well, if you didn't vote in one election on a state level, or you didn't vote in one presidential election, whatever it may be, they just take your name off the rolls. And when you go to vote again, you thought you were registered, and all of a sudden you're not registered. This and those type of laws is what the Pre-Clearance Act forbids, without the things I talked about earlier. So what we're talking about in H.R. 1, it also restores the full protections of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which was decimated by the Supreme Court in 2013. That's got to go back in. That's what that voting rights bill is all about. It also has finance reforms like banning foreign money loopholes. Election security, it adds. Independent commissions to prevent gerrymandering. Grants to help states to replace voting machines that are out of date or not functioning, or either they don't have enough. Processes for auditing and securing election results. And these are the things which are extremely important so that we can keep the democracy that we have. Now, don't let anyone tell you that your vote is not important, because your vote is important, because they're working very hard to make sure it is most difficult for you to vote, and doing things which we had once not had gotten rid of here in the United States. So folks, make sure you're going to do this. Here's your call to action. Call to action. Literally a call is the least that you can do. Is call your congressman, your senator, or your representative, and tell that person that, and tell that representative or senator or that your congressperson, listen, I know about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I know about the For the People Act, and I want to make sure that they get passed, and I'm watching. What can I do to help you? And I want you to support this effort for all Americans. It's not a Republican thing or a Democratic thing. Whoever's looking at this, call your congressperson and say, don't mess with my vote. That's a call to action. Plus, you can do more. You can participate in your local Democratic committee. You can participate in other elections that are happening around the country. As I mentioned earlier, there's lots of ways with the internet, your telephone, but the least you can do is just pick up that phone on a daily basis and call and make it known that you want these acts passed and your vote not messed with. That's the call to action. That's what you need to do. And next week, we're going to bring some of these activism tools online that you can use, that are apps on your phone, that are really fantastic apps that really make this very easy to do. So you don't have to look up numbers, guess who it is, or any of that. I promise I'm going to bring that next week. Also, so as I talk about the Voting Rights Act, I just want people to understand here on our 50th episode, this is extremely important. Extremely important, folks, that you get out and do it. There's lots of things that we need to get done. There's a question, which is not a Democrat or Republican thing, when we talk about gun control. We looked at 2 mass shootings that happened in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas, with innocent people in Buffalo, New York being shot down in a grocery store simply as they shopped. Old people, senior people, young people, police officers. 10 people were shot and killed, and others were injured. Terrible thing. Terrible thing. And we need to address that. We need to address that. It has caused a lot of, PTSD and just people not being able to, sleep at night or feel comfortable going to the store or just feel comfortable at all with, more than 330 million weapons in the United States. 18-year-olds being able to go out and secure simply weapons of mass destruction that allow them to kill as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment, but you know what? I don't think it's a good idea for someone on their 18th birthday to walk into a store, purchase a couple of AR-15s, and go and purchase ammo, and then decide they're just going to walk into a store and literally mow down innocent people. It's not a good thing. Uvalde, Texas. Continue to talk about this. 19 school children, elementary school children, 2 teachers. Same thing. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense when they talk about people who, whatever their motivations are for doing what they do, to essentially kill innocent Americans simply because they don't believe they have a right to exist, for whatever their motivations. We definitely don't like this thing that's going on with replacement theory, talking about Americans are replacing other Americans. That just doesn't make any sense. We're all equal. It doesn't matter where you come from in this country. We don't have a monarchy. We don't have an autocracy. We don't have a dictatorship. We have one person, one vote. And we have a process for executing that, and executed that in the last federal election, where more Americans voted than ever before. It was challenged, but guess what? Republican appointed judges, Democrat appointed judges reviewed all the information and found it was wanting, meaning that there was no evidence that there was any tampering. One of the safest elections ever. Also, that was followed up, by, a terrible incident on January the 6th, where the seat of our government was attacked in an insurrection, and that sort of thing. Officers were hurt. Some of them lost their lives subsequently, and And some of the insurrectionists, at least one of them was another American, was killed. So these things are not good. This is not the things that make us a more perfect union. Everybody is here just trying to get the best that they can get for their families, give them the best education that they can have so they can take on the duties that need to be taken by the elders who are retiring. We need an educated populace to make this happen, to make our economy functioning. We want to be a beacon to the world on what democratic processes are about, with a 200 and some year legacy of a democracy here in this country. We're not just going to give up on that or let it go. So I'm asking you to stay involved. Use your voice. Use your social media platforms. Use your voice to talk to your neighbors and friends and family members, and tell them about what it is that you believe, and get them involved in the process. Because when we all come together from the various different communities, we have a democracy that includes people from all over the world, many different ethnic backgrounds, people that we've brought into the country who have immigrated in, people who have been here for multiple generations, and people who were probably just sworn in through the immigration process, this week. This has been the history of the United States. Now, we haven't done everything right. I'm not trying to say we have this perfect union. What I'm saying is we need to have a more perfect union. And that means looking out for each other. That means doing what we need to do to make sure everybody has unfettered access to the voting polls, and making sure that we keep what has made this country what it is today, and get rid of the things that we've gotten rid of in the past that has kept the country from being as great as it can be. And that's the reason why we passed laws like the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Fair Housing Act of 1968, because I like to talk about those three acts that happened in the 1960s, which was essentially the base springboard to really bring everybody in to the voting process. Women, people who were not of age to vote. I think, I'm trying to remember now when the voting age turned to 18. I think it was 21. But at 18, you can get drafted. You can go to war, right? Why shouldn't you be able to vote? However, we're discerning. Doesn't mean at 18, I get to go in and purchase any type of semi-automatic weapon and not have to have a license, not having to register it, not having to do anything, buy as much ammo as I can, and for whatever reasons, go out and kill innocent Americans. It's not good. It's not good. And, we're here to say, hey, we're still here. We're talking against that sort of behavior. We're looking to say, here are things that we need to improve in the country. And in order to improve those things in the country, we need to go ahead and get behind the things that we believe in and make sure that we send the people to our local, state, and federal offices that are going to execute those things. It's not a zero-sum game. When someone does better or well, it doesn't mean another person, for some reason, had something taken from them. This is the wealthiest country the world has ever known. We have more resources here to do all types of things than any nation that has ever existed on the face of the earth. We have the ability to be magnanimous, to let every American reach the greatest potential that their talents will allow them to. So, hey, get on board. We don't want to continue to send our next generation into tens of thousands, in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt simply to become a doctor or some sort of specialization that we need, or an engineer, or whatever they're going to be, and have them not be able to contribute fully to this country because they are suffering from so much student debt. That is not what we did in the past. We educated people in this country, as I talk about that, because education is a large part of this. I mean, being educated about your civil rights, being educated about how government works, having the ability to read and to do analysis. So when someone is telling you something on the internet or some other source, that you're able to look at what they're saying, read it, do your own analysis, do your own research, and find out whether or not they're actually telling you the truth, or they have ulterior motives and they're being dishonest with you. Don't be a person who just falls for whatever you hear. And if you hear it on the internet, or if you hear it on some television show, it obviously must be true. Do your due diligence. Check. We've got access with the internet to check anything pretty much what anyone says. And if you can't do it, there's plenty of other people who can help you do it. You know, hey, Joe, or hey, Susan, I heard XXX. Is this actually true? Have you went out there to see anything on the internet or other things that that we can look for information? And then you need to check more than one source. Don't get closed up in a bubble and only hear things that you agree with or you want to agree with, because people, they make mistakes, and they also have ulterior motives that are not in your interest, and they're looking to fool you. So listen, stay woke, do your research, look at what's out there. And here's what we're saying in this 50th episode. Make sure that nobody is tampering with your right as a United States citizen to have unfettered access to vote for the person that you believe best can fill your local, your state, or your federal office. Do your homework. Do what you need to do. And you know what? I'm going to basically not go on about this. I'm going to close with voting rights. Make sure that you're doing everything that you need to be doing in order to secure those voting rights. Make sure that you're taking action. Call to action is to call your representatives, your Congress people, and let them know that you're aware of HR 1, which is the For the People Act, and you're aware of HR 4, which is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and that you want to make sure that these bills get passed so they can be signed into law by the President of the United States. But remember, this is the long game. It's not the short game. This is a comprehensive thing. Voting is just one thing you need to do. There's lots of other things where you can participate that will also help on top of just voting. Voting is a very vital thing that you need to do, but a lot of times you need to get out there and let your voice be heard. However it is, with a phone call, with participating in civil demonstrations where people are talking about the things that they believe that the country ought to be doing. And if you want to get out there and do some of that, on top of the fact of calling your congressperson, you getting out there, talking to your neighbors, helping the people that you believe in to get elected in the Democratic Party, all that is open to you. So make sure you're doing that. And folks, I just want to say thank you. 50 episodes, 50 episodes talking about this. And we hope to be here for another 50 episodes until we see the Voting Rights Act passed for HR 1 and HR 4 through the Senate and to the president's desk to get signed, because it's important to keep our democracy. That's what we need to do. And make sure you're registered, folks. Check your registration. Check your registration. And I just want to leave you with that note. As I say what I've been saying for so long, folks, get out there and do what you need to do. because it's important. And as I try to work my technology as best I can, hey, we're not going to go the whole hour because you don't want to just hear me. We don't have a guest. I've hit the 7:40 point. Hey, could you be loved? Thank you for listening to the Virginia Democratic Small Business Caucus show live. And we'll see you back next week. Do that call to action. And we'll see you next week, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Have a beautiful day. Take care of yourselves.